Alright, so this is the first video in a series of videos on WPF, and we're going to be covering some of the differences between WPF and Windows Forms, I guess. There are a few things that, especially if you're coming from Windows Forms, are a little different that may not be obvious, and I know these are a few things that I really wish somebody would have told me when I first started with WPF. So we're going to be working in Blend, at least I am. We're just going to be doing some XAML work. So there's no, you can do the same thing in Visual Studio, but I just prefer Blend. Just going to create a new WPF application, WPF Video 1. It's just going to create our main window for us. If you've never seen Blend before, get used to it, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of WPF stuff by yourself, so you're going to be doing both the front end and the back end. You're definitely going to want to use Blend. Visual Studio can do a lot of most of the same things that Blend can do, but Blend has a few advantages, especially when it comes to UI stuff. And sometimes when you do something in Blend, you'll go and open your project in Visual Studio and the UI editor in Visual Studio won't even work, but it's fine. It's just something that Blend can handle and Visual Studio can't. Alright, so you can hit this little icon right here to do the split screen between the XAML down here, which XAML is what your UI is going to be written in. So I like to have my split view just like this, and if you roll up and down on the trackball of your mouse, you can zoom in and out up here. So right there seems just fine. Here you have, like, this is a button and a text box. This is actually a text block, but if you hold your mouse button down on all of these that have the little arrow down there in the corner, Mother of God. Just so that will stop, I'm going to click it. If you hold it down, then you'll get your other tools. This one right here at the bottom has every tool that's available, and you can search through. So if you wanted a border, for instance, you could grab your border there. But we do not care nor need that for this video. All we need is this button right here. So click it. You can draw a button on here, and you can see that it's already added to our XAML. So one of the big things that we're going to talk about for this video that's different from Windows Forms is this right here. Content equals button. As you can see, the text on the button just says button, which is what the content is here. If we change this content to anything, you can see that that content is the text of the button. If we go back to, I already have it up on my Visual Studio. In Windows Forms, the text of the button is called text in the properties, but again in Blend that property is called content, and the reason that it's called content now and not text is because it's no longer restricted to text. I will give you an example. If we delete this whole content thing, we can actually add any content we want in here, just like it was with text, but we're not restricted to that text. For instance, if I want to now add a rectangle, and we're going to give it the fill of blue. Let's see, we'll go width of 30, height of 20. You can see that we now have a rectangle in that button, and we can grab it and we can resize it if we want. doesn't really matter what it is, but you can see that now this is where that text was. Now we just have a rectangle, and that rectangle is there instead of the text. That's really powerful, and that's very different from how it was in Windows Forms and how difficult it would have been to do something as simple as this. So let's make an example out of it. So over here we have our objects and timeline in Blend. So it'll show us that we have our button, and inside of that button is a rectangle. You can choose to hide it or whatever, but we're just going to actually click on it, and I'm just going to copy and paste it a couple times. And we're just going to move these around for a second. Organize them a little bit. Alright, let's just click on the rectangle on the second one and change its fill color from blue. Let's just say that one's red. This one is green. And this one is going to be purple. Now we're just going to grab our text block. I'm going to add a text block up here. We'll just say which button has the blue rectangle. Alright, and we are just going to again, over here is our properties panel, so we can come down here to text, and we could say that we want it to be 22 or whatever. Alright, fair enough, it doesn't really matter how good this looks, just for an example. But if we come down, let's just give this, actually, let's give this text block a name. Up here, the name property is always going to be at the very top. Regardless of where you scroll down here, you're always going to have your name up here. We're just going to call it T block. Come down here to our blue button. To switch in between properties and events, that's what these are for here, these two toggle buttons. If we go back over here, you always had your properties over on the right, but if you click project, you have your solution explorer. You can do modify data, resources, all that stuff. But just over on properties, we can that's where we just gave this a name. And now if we click on our blue button, we can go to events. And when this is clicked, so double click in the click event, and that's going to take us to our code behind. This doesn't have the IntelliSense that Visual Studio does, which I do miss, but again, that's why I use Blend for the UI stuff, and I use Visual Studio for the code behind. And I'll give you more tips on that in another video, probably my next video on when to use one over the other. But we're just going to go ahead and say T block, which is what we named our text blocks. And again, the T block, it is text, the property, because again, for a text block, you're only going to use text, so it's text. So in the elements that can accommodate more than just text, there it is going to be named content. When I first started out in this, I was new to programming in general, and so I was very confused by this notion. I kept freaking out. Where are my text properties? And it took. I mean, no one really explains it to you all that well, I guess. At least when I started, because I did it on my own. But so the text, and we're just going to say that's equal to. We're just going to say it's correct. All right. So now if we execute our program. Just like in Visual Studio, you can hit F5, or you could go to Project and run Project. Doesn't really matter. It's going to take a second, and it's going to come up. Which button has the blue rectangle? And we got our right one. Super. We have a preschool education. So that's kind of an introduction to the difference between content and text properties. Alright, hope you enjoyed.